The third version, just give us the highlights that the changes from version 2 to version 3, please.
Sure. So just a couple of notes on language. This happens as we make changes, so you will see in the final voted version of the budget all references to the Seacoast Academy changed to City Lab High School. So that will happen. I know we missed it in some places in there. We highlighted in blue the changes between our last conversation till now. They mostly center around reducing the budget for classroom instructional technology because our ESSER 3 funding is going to cover those costs for remote learning for the Chromebooks for the FY24, and moving the majority of that funding toward a flip lock door security project, so you'll see that highlighted. We also talked about making sure to embed in this budget anticipated outplacements that the special education department is working on in the spring that would not hit the current count of students but will hit for the start of the school year. So you'll see that we did that for both tuition to private schools and for tuitions to residential schools. So those are the major changes that were made between these two. The other thing that we were tasked to do was to get back into the weeds around utilities costs. We had been anticipating savings because of improvements that we've done on the facilities over recent years, and went in last week with our operational assistant who does the utilities and went through each of the electric and natural gas accounts and their tracking to make sure that our actual budgeting is looking in line for what we needed. So we did that work as well in this interim. So those are the major changes that have happened between the second and third version of the budget.
Okay. All right, at this point, I would open it up to my committee members if there's any questions for Mr. Cruz. Mr. Kingston?
I don't have any questions at the moment. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Ty?
No, just a general question.
There you go.
The general question is, what kind of shape are we in, Matt? Are you very optimistic? Are you a little wary? Or are you just evenly balanced about prospects for money?
Yeah, I would say we're not wary with the budget that you are voting now. This is an unprecedented increase in Chapter 70 funding for the district, and sort of finally we are able to implement some of the educational vision that the superintendent has had. The question is always, what does future funding look like? When you make a big investment, especially in staff, are you able to maintain that? And we've been hustling as a committee, as you know, to reserve funds wherever possible to deal with the final year of ESSER funding being next year. So those are the things that we'll keep an eye on. And then, of course, the increase in staff means the hard work of going out and finding folks who are a good fit for the district and can slide into those positions. So that's what's in process and will happen over the next 90 days, too.
I'm somewhat optimistic. I know right from the beginning when the ESSA funds came in, we were worried about the future and what happens when they don't come anymore. But, you know, particularly as a resident of Beachmont, I drive by Suffolk Downs, you know. Every place I go, I'm driving by Suffolk Downs. And I'm thinking that when they come online, we will be so much better off than we have ever been in the past. And we should be getting tax money for that. We should be getting any number of things for that. And I have to say that I thank you, Matt, for always looking out, and for the leadership of the superintendent, who has always made sure that we find the balance, because I know the people that we have hired for the next year, and some of them even for this year, you know, people who will interact with our kids in the high school, particularly on a social level rather than on a punishment, from a punishment point of view. As it's not, as you have said so many times, Dr. Kelly, it's not what are you doing in the bathroom, but, you know, what is your problem and how can we help you address this? And as a former high school teacher, that makes me very proud, too, that that would happen. And I know through the middle schools. So what we have done, I think, is amazing. It's the first time in all of the budgets that we've had that I have been so optimistic about the increased number of people and physicians and the ability to pay for them. So thank you, everyone, for watching out.
Go ahead, Dr.
And
Kelly.
if I can just add to that, Ms. Ty, the other thing that I'll say that Matt and I have been heavily focused on is not just the end of ESSER next year, and we've been actively working to remove people who were being paid through those grants into our own budget as it increases due to the Student Opportunity Act.
Right.
And I just want to call that out because that's been such a game changer for us in terms of our funding and being able to make sure that we can afford the additional social workers and school psychologists and others that we're hiring through those funds. But we are very cognizant that that increase in funding is going to end 3 years from now. And that's where we see the real cliff. That's where we're really paying attention to how much we're able to set aside so that we don't suddenly have to have a massive layoff, and it would be FY '27.
Right.
That's really where we're worried. And to your point, hopefully by then, there have been some changes in the city in terms of what kind of funding is coming in from the development at Suffolk Downs. And one thing that the city council needs to be aware of is that that's going to change our funding formula significantly.
Yes.
Because as the city becomes more able to pay, the state will reduce their contribution to net school spending and require that the city pay more of that. So that's something that the city council will want to keep in their own planning as they're planning for changes to the budgeting of the school department.
Dr. Kelly, I mean, the ESSER funding going an extra 3 years, because I assume 2020, huh?
The SOA.
Oh, SOA, okay, I'm sorry. I thought it was the ESSER fund, okay. I mean, it just depends how the state does.
Yeah.
I mean, right now, the state's prosperous to no end, but that could turn in a minute. So we really have to be cognizant. This year, we had a massive increase in people. We had close to 100 more people this year. Obviously, you really can't sustain that. Plus, we need to find places for these teachers to teach, which will probably be an issue. But, as long as the money keeps coming in, you have to spend it. Just keep going.
And that's one of the challenges with fiscal planning in a municipality or in a school department or someplace like that, is we have to use the best information we have to make these educated guesses about what's coming down the road next year and the year after that. And all we can do is be well-informed, which Mr. Cruz and I both stay as current as we can on what's happening financially. Mrs. Rizzo being president of the MASC has been helpful. She's given us a lot of information on funding coming down, and we just stay as current as we can. And as soon as we get new information, we respond to it appropriately, and that's all that we can do.
Mrs. Rizzo, any questions? No, thank you. Okay. Ms. Milbury-Ellis, any questions?
No questions, but I do just have a general comment. I guess as I was going through, I noted as well the sheer number of, people that we're budgeting for. So I'm optimistic that a lot of these issues that we've been talking about over the last year and the concerns that we've been trying to address and have been struggling with, hopefully this will cure a lot of that by having a lot more adults in the building. So those are just my initial thoughts on this. I have some specific questions about particular line items, but I imagine we'll get to those.
Well, I mean, if you want to address them now, you can. I'm giving you the floor.
Sure. So my question is, I noted that we budgeted $270,000 for the flip flops, which, as you know, when it was initially presented, I am in full support of. My only issue that I have is that was the only information that we received on this, and I was kind of hopeful that we would hear about, other schools that are using it, whether our own SROs were consulting and what their thoughts are. It's just a lot of money to invest in a product that, as far as I'm concerned, I only know limited information about. So I would be in full support of this with the caveat that we're provided with additional information on the quality of the product.
Well, right now, Dr. Galucci is going to give us an explanation of it.
Hi, everyone. So I did take your instructions and went back to the company. We are one of the earlier adopters. There is nobody in the vicinity of us that currently has this in place, but there are some districts that are on the cusp of purchasing, just as we are. I did ask them, if we were to approve and move forward, can this be done and be ready for day one of school? They absolutely assured me that could be the case. So they would be installed all over the summer and be ready to go on the very first day of school. There was one more.
Mr. Kingston?
You're done. I'll wait till you finish.
Okay, you can go now.
I just, it can get through the procurement process that quickly? That was my concern.
Does it have to go out to bid? Does it have to go out to bid, or it's just, we're just hiring a company?
I'm going to defer to Matt on that.
I know, yeah. And I just want to tell you, Aisha has her hand up too.
Okay, well, Aisha, let's just answer this, then we'll just answer this and we'll come back to you, okay?
Yeah, I mean, so that's a step 2 question. In other words, we wouldn't be chasing out the details of procurement, state contract purchasing, other arrangements that are for this until the,
But my point is, it's probably not going to get, I'm not being negative, I'm just being honest, looking at the picture. I don't think it's going to happen this summer, because is that quick a turnaround?
well, a number of these larger purchases can be done through government contracts that are already established. For example, the Operational Services Division with the Commonwealth, or there's a few others that we can purchase off of. So we'll have to look into the details on that. A bid process would certainly take 45 to 90 days.
That's what I'm thinking.
But it's also possible that the vendor has this established on an existing contract that we can piggyback on. So
Okay, yeah,
we-
no, I wasn't
yeah.
trying to shelve it, it's just, I think it'd be, hopefully the product works out and everything's great, and it'd be great to get it done over the summer, but I was thinking about from the city hall perspective, no offense, things don't generally move that
Sure,
quickly.
yeah.
And I couldn't see getting, even if we voted on this, you really can't get started until we vote, next week, till we have the regular school committee meeting. And then to start the process, I just didn't see that happening by the time school rolls around. But, the other thing too, we're only budgeting the money,
All right. Aisha, you still there?
Yes, I'm here.
All right, go ahead. I'm sorry about that. Go ahead.
Sure. So my question for Richie is, I'm curious as to whether we've reached out to any districts, even if they're not within our vicinity, but people who are actually using this product and what the feedback was. And 2, whether we spoke with our own policing professionals and had them weigh in on their thoughts on this product.
Sorry, so I missed the second part. I meant to answer that. The first part, I have not reached out far and wide, but I can. I will go back out to them, but I honestly think we are at the very forefront of this product. But I certainly will reach out to see if there's some out-of-state school districts that are using it and get some feedback. The second part is, from the very first moment, even before I presented to school committee, we brought the SROs into the fold. As you know, we're revamping all of our safety protocols next year to really provide some varied options training than the typical training that we've been doing for years. They were all in favor of this. They spoke very highly of it and made a lot of the points that the school committee made when we presented, particularly about the barricading and not having to teach children how to barricade or to attempt to barricade with typical classroom materials. And locking and barricading is not always the only option, but it is an option. And this would make that much more feasible and easier to do during the event of an emergency. So they were fully in favor, all 3 of them.
Okay, great. And they had no qualms about the quality of it and what it's supposed to do?
No, and I gave them the very same sample that I passed around to the school committee, and they were pretty blown away by it. And they actually made the comment that it's the next level up from the magnetic strips that we talked about. So really, they echoed a lot of what you said during that meeting where it was presented. But I will definitely reach out to out-of-state to see if I can get some out-of-state school districts.
Yeah, you know how it is. It's
Oh, yeah.
like Amazon. You want to read the reviews first. You want to,
Yeah.
have some type of feedback, especially
Yeah.
at a $207,000 price tag. So,
Absolutely.
But thank you. I am happy to see it here, but I'm also, I'm hesitant in the sense that I want to make
Sure.
sure that this is going to be well worth. It's going to hold its value and do what it's supposed to do. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Are you all set, Aisha?
I I am, thank you.
Okay, Acting Mayor Keith.
Thank you, Mr. President. One of the questions I had to Dr. Bellucci, I was, like all of us, I think we're very much in favor of this product, and I know that there's obviously going to be some questions which are, certainly important. And just my reality piece on it is, I think it was $99 per installation. I felt like that was something that could be better negotiated, especially since we're one of the early adapters. I imagine if they're in the building and they're doing 100 of these in a couple of days span, that's is it $99 we put 3 in? I get putting a couple hundred in. It's
Sure.
one of those where they're already there, they're present, they don't have to have the travel and the time to set up, they're just going to do it. It might be something like this negotiation.
Yep.
But I still would be in favor of deploying the funds, but I would say just on the back end, working on the deal.
So we did have a back and forth of negotiations about the $99 installation fee. That is when the company decided to give us the keys, which was about a $20,000 difference. So I can certainly go back and see where we can get, but they already did come back to us and make that concession. But I certainly can go back.
All set? All set, Acting Mayor?
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay. Mr. Kingston, any other questions?
No, my biggest question was about this, and maybe, Dr. Glucci, just as a thought, saying what you were saying, if we're gonna be the first in the state, maybe they would be amenable to, doing us a little bit of a whatever, and, even if we had to showcase it to another school to get some more money back. I think that's, hey, we're gonna be the first around to do this, and this might help your business, why don't you,
Yeah.
promotional offer or something, yeah. Thank you.
Yep.
Ms. Ty, go ahead.
Well, that was my question, just jumping on yours, Michael, like, what happens after it's in? How much support are we going to get? Because something always goes wrong everywhere. The world is not perfect. So would we have personnel that could respond to glitches, whatever they may be, small ones in one room or big ones in a whole school? How much support will we be getting, and will we have to pay for that?
Sure, I can ask that question, but I will tell you that the company has been responsive to everything. So certainly I would imagine that they would respond to this. The device itself, I don't know how much difficulty there could be, but as you said, something always comes up. So I certainly will ask, and that's a good question for me to ask an existing district to see if they have had any glitches and what's been the response. So I can certainly do that.
Can we actually get somebody assigned here for a period of time? Because, I remember when the locks in this school, we had a problem with, and, that we constantly having problems. And so I can see in something so much more sophisticated as this, the system is, we'll surely need somebody here with us.
It's a great point. I will
Thank you.
definitely go out to them.
Dr. Bellucci, this just occurred to me as I was reflecting on the committee's conversation, but can you also check with them to make sure that they can be removed and reinstalled elsewhere? I'm just thinking of if we outfit this building and then have a new high school, we might want to take those with us, right?
Yep, 100%.
Yes.
I just have one last question, and it might be a little iffy. Is there a warranty on these?
Lifetime.
Lifetime?
Yep.
Sounds like a good deal to me. Are there any other, Mrs. Rizzo?
So, I know 270,000 sounds a lot, but when we look at all the little things that we say, well, that's only small money for 50,000, and that's only 25,000, whether it's the 200 given to the classrooms. I mean, when you add those kind of monies up, and the benefit that you're getting from it, this outweighs, it's protecting, there's some type of layer of protection for our staff, our students, our families, and there's no amount of money that is going to make me more comfortable. that we spend.
Yeah, okay.
You
Dr.
know,
Kelly?
just to that point, Mrs. Rizzo, I just did a quick calculation, and this comes out to be 0.14% of our budget. So it really is, you know, just a little over 1/10%.
Mr. Kingston?
It's not a question of the money. I want to obviously safeguard the kids and the staff. It was just, is this the right product? And once you've spent the money, you know, do we want to do this again? So it wasn't a question of, you know, not trying to protect anybody. It's just, it's a new product. It doesn't seem widely available in the area right now, which is good or bad thing. And I just wanted a little more information, but I'm hoping that it works, and I'm hoping that, you know, it's something that it's with us for a long time. Thank you.
Yeah, but we do have a lifetime warranty on it. So if anything goes wrong, we can get them fixed, you know, whatever, and I'm sure that the company will be glad to help us out, seeing that we're one of the first. My only concern is we can get it done in the 2-month time frame.
Yeah, and I know that
That's my
Dr.
biggest
Galucci, like, so there have been many products that he's looked at, and hasn't come forward with one unless he thought it was a good product. So I appreciate, and I'm assured by his due diligence that he did look at what's out there and what's available and consider all of that. And like he said, he spoke to our SROs to see what their thoughts were before even bringing it to the school committee.
Let's hope it all works out.
Thank you all.
All right, thanks. Thanks, Dr. Galucci. Matt, I just have a few questions, probably some cleanup stuff. I'm going to give you the page number. On page 56, and it's just basically the number of personnel for the instructional course. When I added them up, and I did it like 3 times, I came up with 9 and you came up with 8. Did I make a mistake somewhere on the number of personnel for fiscal year '24?
On page 56, you're talking specifically about the number of staff serving as instructional support and coaching?
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. No, there's 9 appearing here. 1 is new, so it may not be grabbing that pink row.
And I think I know why. We had clarified after version 1, I think it was, of the budget, that elementary health and wellness is a regular teaching position, not an instructional coach.
Okay.
So I think you probably reduced the number, but didn't physically move it to the correct page.
Got it. Okay.
Okay, thank you. On page 87, is this a new position with the PIC coordinator?
No. So the PIC coordinator was funded through ESSER 2 in the last fiscal year. So there's no new headcount in the totals. We're slotting that salary under an appropriated professionals account rather than an ESSER.
It wouldn't be able to go under ESSER 3?
It could be, well.
No, there was 3 administrative-ish positions. 1 is Dr. Garcia, 2 is here. I think the 3rd was the communications coordinator, and it wasn't approved for a 3rd year. The instructional positions were the ones that had approval in the grant to move forward. That's why those 3 ended up in the appropriated.
All right, page 109, where it's miscellaneous. It says miscellaneous Chris Bowen High School initiatives, 30,000. I don't see that figure reflected in the total professional development stipends.
Yes, we're showing it there, but it'll be paid out of the miscellaneous payments to teachers for the high school. So I'll make sure that the numbers tie out, but we didn't want to miss that was a formal thing that the committee added to the professional development for teachers. So we're showing it as a pink in that line.
Right.
I'll make sure that it ties out with the miscellaneous payments to teachers.
Okay, page 145. The one figure that concerns me is the Chromebooks. On the first 2 budgets, we allocated $350,000. This time, we have nothing. I assume that we're going to end up with more students. We'll probably have some broken Chromebooks, some that won't come back to us. If we have to get new ones, Where is the funding coming from?
So this is to the point that you were just making about the PIC coordinator position. We did put the purchase of new Chromebooks under ESSER 3 because we were able to use those funds that way. So wherever we could, we're trying to work on keeping things in the ESSER money because that's going to go away next year and moving people into our budget. So we do have, I believe it's $600,000 that Jonathan Farrar will be using for Chromebooks.
In the lab replacement, the 200,000?
We've really moved away from having labs because the kids all have Chromebooks now.
Okay.
So the lab replacement doesn't have the same level of a cost that it used to.
What page was that?
145. And I think just my last question, Matt, in the same page, that on the 504 services, on budget 2, we had 70,000 more, then we sort of zeroed it out. Is there a reason why?
We're hoping to staff psychologists,
Okay.
which will limit the need for a third party to do the number of evaluations that they had done this year.
Okay. I am going to ask everybody, does anybody have any more questions? Now's the time. Mr. Kingston, I'll start with you.
No, I'm all set, thank you.
Okay. Ms. Ty?
All set, thank you.
Okay. Ms. Aisha Milbury Ellis?
All set, thank
All
you.
set. Acting Mayor Keefe?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay. Mrs. Bronson Rizzo?
Thank you, no.
Okay. So at this time, if we're good with the budget, I want to make a recommendation that refer this budget to the school committee for its vote entirely.
Second.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Roll call?
Mr. Franti?
Yeah.
Mr. Franti?
Yes.
Mr. Kingston?
Yes.
Ms. Ty?
Yes.
Thank you. This will be referred to next Tuesday's meeting for the entire school committee to vote on the budget.
So just some procedure reminders, you'll be voting by series. It's the way of taking $121 million of an appropriation and putting it into chunks that make sense. So there'll be the administration and instruction and support services and plant maintenance and benefits and capital and tuitions. They'll each have a number, and then you will vote in total. This is how we are going to spend the $121 million that the city is appropriating to us as a department. And I'll work up to the gun on the pages that have sort of projections, carry forward the end of year summaries, and that's more informational for you to say, hey, when we got to June, here's what we saw coming, this is what, the strategy that we're using and why. So I'll update those carry forward analysis and end of year analysis pages, probably up until Thursday when I have to get the figures to Robin. And then in addition to that document for public meeting, we'll have something available for Ways and Means Committee with the individuals who are a part of this budget. So these pages don't have names, but we'll have that available also when we get there.
Okay.
Yep.
Mrs. Rizzo?
I'm not sure, I think the council will already be voting on this Monday at their meeting on this budget.
Right.
Tonight?
Yeah, tonight.
So what the council will be doing is saying, we are approving that dollar amount, the 121, to the committee. That's what they have to spend in appropriated funds. And then you'll follow that up with your meeting on the 20th saying, and as a committee, here's what we're doing with that appropriation.
It is supposed to be the other way, though?
It is.
We're supposed to want it first, then it goes to the council?
Same thing happened last year.
Last year was the first time that they voted prior to us because
But
the chair of that committee had to go away.
I will say that you're really voting on two different things. They're voting to give the school committee the money that the state says they are required by law to give the school department.
Yes.
You're voting on what that money is going to be spent on. They don't have purview over that.
And we can make any changes we want at our meeting if need be, or we can vote it up and down, but they've already assured that they would give us the money that we're putting here right now.
That's right. And anything that we've put into the city's hands has come as a projection or an in progress. because you have up until the date of your vote to say, we know what you're giving us, here's what we're going to use it on. So those two will flow from there, and then we start downhill on the process for another fiscal year.
If there are no other questions, I would close the meeting out at 1:35. We'll see you next week. Thank you.
I think he already had.